All right, our guest of honor has finally arrived, Aaron Pendergraft. I want to start by just thanking everyone for coming tonight to honor Aaron in his service to the community and to California State Parks. And special thanks to Bodega Bay Fire and Bodega Volunteer Fire for letting us have McCaughey Hall for this event. Just the outpouring of support. Everyone knows Aaron here either on a personal level, family level, or a professional level. And I think everyone can agree that Aaron's an outstanding guy, and thank you for your support tonight. I'm just going to keep my presentation short so we can get to our guest speakers to honor Aaron. I'd like to introduce our Deputy Director of Park Operations, Kathleen Amon.
Thank you. Good evening, everybody. So I'm absolutely honored, Aaron, to be here tonight to celebrate in your amazing achievement that you did. I want to thank you not only for your dedication and your selflessness in the act that you performed during your rescue, but also for every single day that you're out there working. And also my gratitude extends to each and every one of you that put your lives on the line, whether it be in lifeguarding or it be an officer out in the field. My appreciation is, I can't give enough words to say how grateful I am and thankful for your service. So I look forward to your celebration.
Our next speaker is going to be Brian Ketterer, my friend and Academy classmate. Brian is currently our Southern Division Chief. Brian worked many years as a lifeguard, so it's very fitting that he's here today. Thank you.
Thank you, Tim. It was 30 years ago today that I found my passion in a noble profession the society is entitled Lifeguard. One who protects, rescues, safeguards, and watches over those who find themselves in peril in or around the water. To the state of California and our department, the definition of these heroes extends past the boundaries of water and introduces words such as compassion, counselor, and educator. It is a great pleasure to join all of you, along with our Deputy Director, Kathleen Amon, and represent the Northern Division Chief, Jason DeWall, and our Law Enforcement Officer Chief, Scott Bain, who were not able to attend tonight in celebrating this auspicious occasion. And it is truly my honor to stand among so many who serve on the front lines of protection for the public. And we recognize the remarkable contributions of Mr. Aaron Pendergraft. We call attention to not this one act, but we also recognize the courage of the inspiring efforts and collective accomplishments of all lifeguards, and express our thanks and deep appreciation for those bravery, commitment, and the many sacrifices, all in the good of the public. As lifeguards, we often react without the thought of consequence or the possibility of personal harm. It is this internal brain tick which forces us to think of others first and ourselves latter. And Goat Rock and the coastal area around us are treacherous, and even for the most seasoned lifeguard, is not for the faint of heart. This ocean is different, which makes it entering the water to save another exceptionally difficult. On average, more than 150 people drown in the United States each year, and more than 50,000 are rescued by professionals like Aaron. However, Aaron's rescue is complicated by the fact that it is in this place, in February's wet and cold conditions, with rocks and bone-crushing obstacles, and done without the simple tools of a wetsuit or lifeguard rescue tube. Every day, the public has an expectation that we will respond at a moment's notice, protect their loved ones, and be there when heralded. And on February 26th of this year, Aaron, you lived up to that promise and that expectation, and you saved a mother and her young child without care or regard for yourself or your safety. You saved the torment of grief from a family who should have lost loved ones. You saved a relationship between a mother and a daughter, a mother and father, and a daughter and family. You saved the future, the hopes, dreams, and aspirations of many in one unselfish act. What we define as bravery, I am sure you saw as a simple responsibility of duty. For my office and our department, I wish to thank you for your bravery and the courage not only concerning this specific act, but for each and every action and contact you have made with the public, for the profession you have chosen, all of the connections you have made with the visitors to our coastline, and how you represent your brothers and sisters in this state park family. And to the family members of our courageous Medal of Valor recipient, understand your love, your support, and your sacrifices are deeply felt. You have been an essential part of everything that Aaron has become and will accomplish. Aaron, you embody the very best of what it means to be a public servant. Your collective work is exceptional, essential, and extraordinary. I am honored and humbled to call you and your colleagues partners. You are the beacon of valor and selflessness to all who hear about your act of heroism. At this time, it is my great pleasure to introduce, I'm sorry, I'll let you do that, Tim. But I just want to say, Rex Grady, I came up here in the academy, and Tim brought me up here, and I don't remember why we came up, but Rex Grady was the first one to introduce us to the coastline and actually give us a tour. And it was amazing to hear the stories around the campfire eating abalone and just what you guys have to go through, whether it be Coast Guard, fire, Rangers, and our lifeguard. It is an amazing thing that you do each and every day for the communities of this area. So I want to thank you personally.
It's going to be tough to follow that, Rex. Our next speaker is going to be Rex Grady. I owe Rex a debt of gratitude, actually, for picking up the phone in 1995 and calling me down in San Diego and asking me to come work up here, where I've been pretty much ever since. Rex was a lifeguard on the coast out here for many, many years, and Rex has been through a lot, seen a lot, and he's done an incredible job as a lifeguard working for us. So, Rex.
Hey, Aaron, it's nice to see you. It's been a while. Doesn't seem like that long ago when I first met you, and we spent a little time out on the coast. As Tim said, I was a lifeguard here, not many years. There are others, Aaron included, who've been here longer. I was here for about 5 years, from 1994 to 1999. Prior to that, I was with State Parks, more on a part-time basis in Southern California and San Diego coast. Looking out at the faces here, it brings back a lot of memories. I mean, Mike Brousard, he trained me back in 1983. Eddie Vidroska, Britt was one of my first seasonal supervisors down in San Diego, and then my supervisor up here. Mike Martino, the head lifeguard of California. He and I were college buddies and worked together in San Diego coast and then up here. Just an incredible history, and with guards coming from all over the state to take part in this very special program. I recall coming up here in 1994, and I remember, and Mike's going to talk about this a little more, the prejudice in the community towards the lifeguards. It was just a bunch of Southern Californians, some of whom carried guns. But the local population, the local surfers, they weren't the only ones who had prejudices. The lifeguards, we had prejudices too. We had this attitude, only trained, experienced veteran guards from other state parks can do this job. Local surfers, yeah, they're good watermen. Some are excellent watermen, but they just don't have the experience, the skills. We gotta recruit from outside. I met Aaron, I don't know, maybe 1997, 1996. We were both working, believe it or not, at Ives Pool. I was just filling in shifts so I could swim for free, and Aaron was a little more full time there. And we got to talking, and he found out I was a ocean lifeguard out on the coast, and he said, I'm a surfer, and I'd love to do that job. This was back in 20 years ago. And he would frequently express his interest in it, and I remember. And it's going back a long way. I remember him coming out and doing a ride-along and just driving around the coast and checking things out. And, it just reaffirmed everything for him that he wanted to do the job. Britt was up as the supervisor, and Britt agreed to give him a shot and sponsored him down at training if he could get through the requal and pass his interview. So Aaron did the requal. I'm not sure where he did it. He can tell you that. But he had an interview. He was going to interview with the guards at Santa Cruz. The late great Alex Peabody, had him scheduled for an interview, and Aaron was 2 hours late for that interview. And I ran into one of the guys down from Monterey, Eric Landry. I guess Eric's probably still working somewhere.
Just retired.
He just did. Okay, great lifeguard, good guy. And he told me, he said, we really liked him, but Alex just had to draw the line. He just said, man, you got to be on time. You got to try again next year. And he said, but Alex said he had the greatest excuse of all time, and that was, I had to milk all those goats. Aaron was living and working at a goat ranch, and the goats had to be milked, and it's just so funny. But Aaron didn't give up. He did not give up. He stayed with it. He went down and did that swim again. He made his interview. He got the go-ahead. He went to lifeguard training, and Eddie is going to talk about that. And he put in a little bit of time, maybe 4 months total, I think at San Clemente, and then 3 months in Monterey, and got some of the basic on-the-job training with some really good lifeguards. And then he came up and worked. And, it was just like, it must have been around 2002. It was probably somewhere in there. And I was already gone at that point. But, I'd hear things, and, it was great. Aaron had done it. What had he done? Not just accomplished his goal, but he had obliterated our old veteran state park lifeguard prejudices. Oh, only these veteran guards from outside the county who've come up through the system can do this job. He was a local surfer who did it. He was now the first real local to do this job, and he was given a tall order. He was assigned Tim Murphy's old number, 260. Those are big shoes to fill. His name is on this list here, the Medal of Valor winners. And Aaron, I think, did an excellent job filling those shoes. There's no question about it. Anytime anyone comes out to this coast and works, no matter how much experience they have, no matter where they worked, no matter how challenging the circumstances, it is a trial by fire working this coast. A trial by fire. And I know that early in his career here on this coast, he was burned, like all of us have been, who've worked as lifeguards on the Sonoma Coast. I remember Tim giving me a call in 2002 and told me about the loss of Alexandria Flores, a little girl at Wrights Beach. And it's just the nature of our coast that things like that happen. And he told me to say a prayer for Aaron because he was taking it hard. And I know there were other guys out there I've talked to over the years, and it was a tough thing. And I've been through that experience before, and I know basically most of the lifeguards who've worked here have. And that's the thing about somebody like Aaron. Why do you do this job? Sure, love the water, love the coast. But, here's a guy who always impressed me as a kind-hearted, caring guy. Does this job because he cares about the people. It's a cliche to protect and serve and all that. But for people who work this coast, particularly the seasonal employees, the seasonal lifeguards, that are not paid a lot, it's a labor of love. It's a duty. It's an honor to do the job. And Aaron, you've certainly honored your commitment to the people here. I recall back in February, I guess that's when this event happened, seeing the headline in the paper. I just happened to walk by a desk where the paper was laying, and I saw a reference to this rescue. And I was just like, my attention was immediately drawn, and I started scanning. I was just like, oh my God. And I was wondering, who did this? Who did it? And it was Aaron. I hadn't talked to Aaron in a long time, and I knew he was still out there, and I just couldn't have been more proud. It's just one of the all-time great rescues anywhere, really. Just incredibly challenging circumstances. I talked to Raul Escobar, one of the lifeguards out here, who was there that day, and he and somebody else can go into the details of this rescue, but just one thing that he said about it. And it helped me understand just how bad that surf was. It was bad. It was big, mean, and nasty. And he had a little girl and the little girl's mother out in the water to save. And Raul tried to get out. He tried to get through that wall of water. And he's a very experienced waterman, been doing this a long time, been on this coast for about as long as Aaron has. And he said he could not get through that water. He just got ragdolled and driven right into the berm numerous times. He just couldn't get out there. Aaron was on his own. So just incredible feat that was accomplished. You know, I look back on my experience as a lifeguard, and you know, that wasn't my experience, but I can relate to it. And I just can't be more proud to have been part of this program for a period of time, and to have been associated with such great people, caring people who care about the people who come to our coast. And I couldn't be more proud of you, Aaron. And I don't mean that in a condescending way at all. I just look up to you for what you accomplished. And I have no doubt that, objectively speaking, you know, you've just got to be one of the all-time greats, lifeguards, if not one of the greatest. So God bless you, and thank you. And thank you all for coming. This is just terrific.
Thanks, Rex. I'd like to introduce our next speaker, Ed Vidroska, lifeguard trainer. Ed worked for several seasons up here, primarily up at Salt Point, what they'd call back then the North Coast Lifeguards. Ed.
Well, I'm really happy to be here. This has been kind of a little nostalgia trip. I spent 7 years working this coastline, and my blood pressure does go high every time I drive past this little stretch of coastline, I got to be honest with you. Getting these people together and all these faces together, this is neat because this is a happy occasion. You know, quite often when we get together and I wear this uniform, it's for something that's a funeral or something sad. But I'm very, very happy and honored to be here, to be able to say a couple words to you. As you've heard and as you already know, lifeguards in this district make many heroic rescues. That's a known fact to anybody that's worked this stretch of coastline. Because of the alarming number of drownings that occurred here as far back as anyone remembers, State Park Superintendent Bryant Hickey made history 25 years ago when he assembled the first group of lifeguards to work this coast. They had all cut their teeth on the beaches in Southern California, and virtually all of them had proven themselves as exemplary watermen and waterwomen. Their arrival to the North Coast was not like the unsettling or the settling of the Wild West. Everything was different here. The biting cold water, the rocky coastline, the mentality of the public, the cold and wet weather, and above all, this massive surf. Unlike the beaches of Southern California, the Sonoma coastline faces squarely west and takes the full brunt of those winter swells out of the Gulf of Alaska. As an example, in my first 25 years as an ocean lifeguard in Southern California, I witnessed the phenomenon of 20-foot surf one time. It was 1983 and it broke the San Clemente Pier, and they still talk about that day. In my first winter here, there were 30 days of 20-foot surf and several days of 30-foot surf. Additionally, the North Sector lifeguards had to deal with a phenomenon that we were unfamiliar with, and this is the phenomenon of abalone divers, who, driven by ego, bravado, and a small amount sometimes of stupidity, we had to go and rescue these people from treacherous conditions, which, you know, people risk their lives for this incredibly rare delicacy. Logistical issues arose almost immediately for the first crew that came up here. They had trouble gaining access to the people that were in the water. There was very poor radio reception, and above all, there's a profound lack of backup. And I mean, I think that those are probably issues that are still, I would guess, in essence today. It became clear very quickly that lifeguarding on the North Coast was something radically different than anything we had known in working Southern California. These lifeguards were not in Kansas anymore. Looking back today, the range and intensity of the rescues made by the Sonoma Coast lifeguards is indeed sobering. Before the advent of the video camera, most of these rescues were unheralded, and their stories only exist now in the memories of the lifeguards and the victims who were there at the time. Despite the short history of this lifeguard service, only 25 years, and the small size of the crew that has worked here, the Sonoma Coast State Lifeguards have been awarded the highest percentage of the Medals of Valor of any lifeguard agency in the world. Today, Aaron Pendergraft's name will forever be linked with fellow Sonoma Coast Medal of Valor winner recipients Don Straub, David Carter, Michael Stevenson, Tim Murphy, Britt Horn, and Nate Buck. Yes. In a few moments, we'll pay a fitting tribute to Aaron for responding above and beyond the call of duty. But I want to just take a moment to acknowledge the heroic service of all of you lifeguards, past and present, rangers, firefighters who put yourself in harm's way here. There's lifeguards that are not here tonight, and there's some great guys that have worked here in the past. Lifeguards like Osh McNulty, Raul Escobar, Tom Neff, Joe Stoffers, Rex Grady, Mike Martino, Scott Kwan, Frank Circos, Matt Fusey, Doug Schoaf, Clark Hale, and many others have served with valor along this coastline, as Superintendent or Chief Ketter has mentioned. I would like to thank all of these lifeguards, rangers, and EMS personnel, and I would like you all to just take a moment and stand up and be recognized by this audience for what you have done here. If you've worked this coastline, all right, now sit down, because this is all about Aaron, okay? All right. Aaron's lifeguard story begins where we all began, and that's lifeguard training, and that's where I kind of come into play. Our lifeguard training program is a phenomenon unto itself. The rookie school experience forms a common taproot for every state lifeguard. We always, of course, share a kinship in wearing the bear on our red trunks. That is something that ties us together. But our first bond, the first bond that we share, is going through state lifeguard rookie school. You know, it's rare to remember any aspect of your life for your entire life, but I would venture to say that every state lifeguard remembers rookie school and their participation in that. Driving into that Huntington Beach parking lot on some spring morning and not being sure of what exactly is going to happen. We had various degrees of apprehension, excitement, and awe, but we were all there. And Aaron was there too. Now, everyone knew that rookie school was competitive. The rewards for success not only guaranteed the greatest conceivable job that you could have in the summer, but also a bi-weekly government-issued paycheck, okay? Not a bad thing when you're 19 or 20 years old. It also provides something else to a 20-year-old kid. Becoming a lifeguard guaranteed an almost instant vault up in social status and perhaps a little facility with members of the opposite gender. And I think that was the driving force for many of us at that time. You became a lifeguard, you instantly had a sense of cool that you did not have before you were a lifeguard. We all wanted that pretty bad. The trainees would hang out and all look at each other, and they're from all over the state, and they looked at each other and scrutinized each other with a level of scrutiny that was on par with the NFL draft lottery. These guys were your competition, and everybody knew it. Many of them wore nylon parkas with their college swim team logos emblazoned on the back. The swimmers were tall and wiry with frizzy pool hair, gabbing loudly with the exuberance of youth and high levels of testosterone. The water polo stars were broad shoulders and muscular. They could easily have been mistaken for football players. The surfers were there. They wore cotton flannel shirts and were more laid back. Their hair was bleached by the surf and usually longer than the regs allowed. They knew that it would be sheared in an hour or so when the program started, but they were reluctant to part with their bushy blonde locks because they served as a proclamation to everybody else that they had spent more time in the surf line than you had. But one quality that all of these trainees shared, and it's one that Aaron saw on his first day of training, every one of these guys looked like they could swim forever. The Russian River, as Rex mentioned, does not send rookies to training. They only accept veteran lifeguards who ride alone and are trusted to make life and death decisions autonomously. There is no infrastructure to develop lifeguards up here. There's no training wheels up here. There are no towers. You have to know your stuff before you get up here. For that reason alone, in the 20 years that I had been an instructor for lifeguard training, The combined districts of San Diego, Huntington, San Clemente, Ventura, and Santa Cruz had sent us over 2,000 rookies. In those same 20 years, the Russian River District sent us a total of 4. 2 were the exceptional Walton brothers, who many of you know, Luke and Orion. Their father was a well-respected ranger here on the Sonoma Coast. They grew up in the state parks family. They hung out with the lifeguards. They dove impeccably well. They surfed impeccably well. They were proficient at everything. Both had college scholarships, and Orion was eventually a pilot. These were brilliant kids. The third was Mark James. Mark was a phenomenal free diver who routinely free dove 60 feet. I kid you not. We actually recruited Mark because of his impeccable skills as a waterman. Mark was also an Ironman triathlete, and oh, by the way, a Navy SEAL. His pedigree had no equal. At lifeguard training among a class of distinguished college athletes and water polo players, he crushed it and was valedictorian of his class. The fourth was this man sitting right here, Aaron Pendergraft, goat farmer. It's true. That's all I knew about Ender Pendergraft on the day he arrived at Huntington Beach 16 years ago. The lifeguards here at the Sonoma Coast told me that this kid might not be the most polished of athletes. This was Grady that told me this, but that he will literally run through a brick wall for me. And that he was a goat farmer. No. So I seem to recall that Pender, and correct me if I'm wrong, had never even been to Southern California before he went to Huntington. Was that true?
I usually go around Southern California.
He did not carry a world-class pedigree. He was not an all-American swimmer. He was not a world-class surfer. He did not free dive 60 feet. And he was not an Ironman. To my knowledge, there were no colleges in line to award him any type of scholarship. But on that first day, he approached me and shook my hand firmly, and I asked about his experience coming into the program, and he confirmed that it was not a joke. He really, truly was a goat farmer. And I said, you really are? And he said, well, you know, I'm more of a shepherd. I told him, you know, Aaron, I'm not sure being a shepherd is really going to help you much here at lifeguard training. And he looked me square in the face and he said, really? Jesus was a shepherd. He certainly had a point. Among the thousands of rookies that have come through our program, it is rare that one stands out in your memory. Aaron Pendergraft stood out in my memory. He completely and totally immersed himself in the program. He got his butt kicked soundly on the first swim. And he exited the surf line among the last swimmers, but he ran up the berm and crossed the finish line as if he were setting some kind of world record, man. Each day, we would cut the slowest of swimmers, which left little room beneath him. So Aaron was forced to improve so that there was no space between him and the guys who were packing their bags. Eventually, it seemed that it was inevitable that he would go, but every day he improved just enough to stay in the program and avoid being cut. He charged through the surf with reckless abandon, and on mock rescues, when the trainees were instructed to go at 75%, he charged the 100% just the same, as if to prove a point. In virtually everything he did, he seemed to be unable to tone it down. He stayed after class and he swept the floors. He stayed up late to study. He failed CPR, then practiced over and over and over again until he got it right. In scenarios, he struggled again and was forced to remediate with the added stress and noise that we do the remediations. He blocked out all the distractions and he passed the scenarios. You know, on the final day, we tabulate all of the events, all of the scores and everything. And all the instructor staff gets together to scrutinize the totality of each kid's performance and make a decision on whether they were going to pass or not. Pender's scores were not stellar. And plus, he had that added caveat that we all had to face, that he would be coming to work the North Coast, the most treacherous stretch of coastline by drownings in the world. If you go by drowning numbers, this is it. And that decision weighed on us very heavily, whether he was going to pass or not. Folks, on graduation day, the instructors give passionate speeches that summarize the 8 days of hard work and motivate them for the road ahead. The core of the speech that I give was originally penned by Mike Brousard, who's here this evening and is without equal the elder statesman of the State Lifeguard program. That speech has been morphed over the years, but the content, the core content is essentially the same. And when I read the little paragraph from it right here, it's almost uncanny how Mike's words are astonishingly prophetic. He said, "Today you will become a lifeguard, and if you continue in this profession for a few years, you will do things that most of us will matter more in the grand scheme than anything else you will do in your lives. Lifeguards will challenge you to make yourself a better lifeguard and a better person. They will share the most intimate aspects of their lives with you. This happens not by chance, but rather as a result of the respect you will earn when you lay it on the line in the service of others. You will become part of an elite team, and working together, you will rescue people from the sea in every imaginable mood she takes, from dead calm to absolutely horrendous. At times, you will be asked to perform at the absolute edge of your physical capabilities, and you will answer that call. You will risk your well-being, if not your very life, to save others. And in those rare but heroic rescues that you will make, your life will intersect with the lives of complete strangers at the most critical moment of their entire existence. And you will change the hand of fate. You will say no to God, not on this day, not on this beach, not on my watch, and you will rescue them from death. You will save lives." On graduation day from rookie school in the year 2000, the instructors agreed unanimously that Aaron Pendergraft would become a lifeguard. The decision came down to a single trait that eclipsed any deficiency that he had, and that was this: this kid would run through a brick wall for you. Pender was given a pair of red trunks and a lifeguard position. 16 years later, on February 26th of this year, Pender was on patrol at Goat Rock on a winter day with solid 15-foot surf when he saw a large wave sweep up the berm and knock down a family of 5. Initially, all 5 were in the water, but 3 of them were pulled to shore with the help of bystanders. The other 2, a mother and a daughter, were pulled into the deep inshore hole. Working on instinct, he sprinted from the vehicle without a wetsuit, fins, or even a rescue buoy. He dove into the frigid water, going after the child. He reached her and kept her afloat. The mother was also in sight. He initially tried to bring the child to shore, but the pounding surf was just too big and too dangerous. Eventually, both victims, along with Pender, were pulled out to the sea. Realizing the impact zone was also too treacherous, he decided to swim them further out and away from this 15-foot shore break. And there, they waited for help. Responding units summoned the sheriff's helicopter. The helo set up a pickoff rig and were able to extricate the child on the first attempt, the mother on the second attempt, and Pendergraft on the third. In all, Pendergraft was in the 49-degree water for around 30 minutes with no wetsuit. As an addendum to this rescue, Pendergraft was transported to Sutter Hospital where he was treated for hypothermia. And when the ER physician found out the nature of the rescue, he asked if his child could come in to meet this lifeguard hero. Folks, if you've ever wondered what kind of kid would be the perfect candidate to be awarded the Medal of Valor on the Sonoma Coast, I can tell you. It's the kind of kid that would run through a brick wall for you. Congratulations, Aaron.
The next speaker we have is Mike Martino. Mike also had the distinction of working up here at the very inception of the lifeguard program. Mike is now our captain or our aquatic safety specialist. He's our head lifeguard. Mike Martino.
Talk about some tough acts to follow. I'm going to do my best to honor everybody that's here tonight, particularly you, Aaron. The program for for Sonoma Coast started in August of 1990. It was August 9th of 1990. That was the very first day here. And I joined the gang in March of 1991. Prior to the lifeguards along the Sonoma Coast before we got here, there was an average, minimally, of 5 deaths a year on the coast. I remember seeing some stats that some years had 10 deaths a year. So this program was coming into a situation where everybody in town expected a minimum of 5 to 10 people to die a year. That's just the way it was. And the implementation of the Lifeguard program came coincidentally at the same time the department decided to institute day use fees for all of the parking along the coast. So as you might guess, coming from a spirited community whose members are very involved in their coastal area, they were not happy with our arrival here. They picketed the coast. They picketed all of the entrance stations. They made sure that we knew that we weren't welcome because of the fees. They really felt that, hey, these fees are why you guys are here. We don't need you to be here. So that was sort of the environment that we came in on. And we would keep patrol logs during the time that we were out on patrol. And if you go back to some of the old patrol logs, which I still have, you'll see some hash marks on the top of them. And the hash marks weren't the number of people we rescued. They were the number of people who either flipped us off or had some type of derogatory comment about our performance on the coast. So I've gone by and I've looked at some that had 25 hash marks on the top. So all of us lifeguards, as Rex has mentioned, we came from Southern California. And the reception that we got from the community took quite a bit of adjustment, both for the community and for us. And I'm just going to give you 2 examples of my early experience here on the coast. Opening day, abalone season, April 1, 1991. Large surf, challenging conditions. If I had to estimate, and I'm going to use this just as an estimate, for every 100 people we talked to, 80 of them told us to pound sand. The other 20 might listen, and pounding sand is a nice way to say what they had to say. Typical retorts to our entreaties were, do you know how many years I've been diving? How old are you, kid? We eventually categorized these folks into what we called 10 years, 20 years, or 30 years. I've been diving for 20 years on this coast. Most of them had a pack of cigarettes and a Pabst Blue Ribbon beer to start their dive. And I'm sorry if you're feeling like I'm, let's just say, profiling, but that's what it was. That was how the coast was, how we worked, and what we had to deal with. Well, I had my first CPR that day. My partner, Osh McNulty, and I did CPR for 45 minutes. Up till that very moment, I had not seen Osh in 2 years. I'm doing compressions, Osh is working inhalations, and in between compressions and counting, I said, hi Osh, how you doing? How's everything going? And that was our first introduction back to each other. We did CPR for 45 minutes before our backup got there, and I still have the scars on my hand from it. All my skin got wiped away on my hand from that particular CPR. Story number 2. I'm at Goat Rock State Beach in the exact same area that you're going to be 25 years later. Huge surf, again, not quite as big as what you were dealing with, but the shore break and the pound was just tremendous. And when the waves broke, the white water was head high. So imagine this aerated foam of white water. The wave breaks and just this wall of white water rolls up the beach. And there was a family of 5, a mother with her children. And Kurt Leffler and I were working the beach together, and we saw them walking on wet sand. And if you walked on wet sand, you were automatically being contacted. I'm getting out of the vehicle, Kurt's getting out of the vehicle, and the wave explodes on the sand. And I watched a wall over the family's head completely and totally envelop them. A mom and her children disappeared. Kurt and I ran at top speed. Kurt, if you ever got to know him, was 6 feet 10 inches tall. Great partner to have. And I'm just this little 24-year-old, 5 feet 10, hauling butt down to the water, and I'm grabbing arms and legs, and I'm just pitching them back to Kurt. And we rescued every single one of them. And at the end of the rescue, the mom, probably more scared than she's ever been in her life, yelled at us because we let one of the shoes of the children go into the water. Now, all of us who work this coast understand that mother was terrified. That was her reaction to almost losing her children. And all she could focus on was the fact that we didn't get one of her little one's shoes. I want to forward now, fast forward the film 25 years. So my stories are 1991. Now we're going to add 25, and we're going to go all the way up to 2015, 2016. As my friends have mentioned, I'm the aquatic specialist. I'll be a little bit crass, so my apologies to the brass in here. We joked when I first got the job, if you notice, aquatic safety specialist. Everybody started calling me the big ass. So I'm the big ass. And part of my job and my responsibilities are to go and check on all the different areas. And one of the places I wanted to come up and check on how the program was going was up here on the Sonoma Coast. So I got a hold of Tim, I got a hold of Joe, and I said, hey guys, I'm going to be up for the weekend. I'm going to patrol one of the days with Joe. I'm going to patrol one of the days with Tim. I'm going to work the wet seat. I want you guys to know I'm not there to judge you. I'm not there to make you nervous. I don't want you feeling like, oh no, the big boss is here. Just lifeguard. Let's lifeguard the coast. Joe and I worked the first day together, and for every 100 people that we talked to, 100 of them listened to Joe. They were so thankful about the information that he was giving him. And I remember it was the first big swell of the season. Joe looked out there and he goes, Mike, this is the first big swell. And that old feeling that Rex has already talked about, that I call it post-traumatic stress. My blood pressure went up and I was like, okay, Joe, I'm here for you. I got this. We're going to do it. We talked to so many people that day. 100% of them listened to him. We had a college class. They thanked him and said, we're not going to go in the water today. You're right. Thank you very much for your information. It's too dangerous. We talked to families. We talked to divers. Every one of them listened to Joe and thanked him for the information. His crew that he had out here. A couple of you guys are already here. We had him out on the jet ski. There was a bass tournament, or when they go out on there was another one of these big tournaments. His guys are going out there making contacts, and everybody, they're keeping the beach safe. There's Joe, there's me, and two seasonals for about 16 miles of coastline. Well, later that day, we go by Timber Cove. And for those of you that aren't from the area, Timber Cove is not a state park. It's what we call a zone of impact. It's one of the little areas that the guards still check in on. Lots of people will lifeguard, or lots of people will dive there, and the lifeguards check in on them. So Joe and I check in, and we look down, and the surface probably 6 to 8 foot, pounding in the little cove, and there's one abalone diver out there. And as soon as Joe and I show up, the lady who's the manager of Timber Cove comes up to us and says, I can't believe that guy is out there. He's endangering his life. I told him not to go. He should not be out there. I said, okay, ma'am, we'll take a look. Joe and I are looking, and I looked at Joe. Even though it had been 25 years since I worked the coast, I said, Joe, we're going to have to go get that guy. And he said, yeah, we are, Mike. And I said, I'll tell you what, I'm going to make the rescue. And he looked at me, and he's like, okay. So I changed up, got into my stuff. Joe is going to be my backup. He's going to give me signals, get out there. And the lady from Timber Cove is absolutely appalled. I can't believe you guys are going to have to risk your lives to go out there. I am so embarrassed. That guy is getting kicked out when you bring him back in. I enter the water, and as soon as I enter the water, about a 6 to 8 foot wave, pow, hits me, and I make it through. And there's a seal that pops up, and there's waves, and it's swirling around, and I think to myself, what am I doing out here? I'm the boss. I got the young kid giving me signals. No, he said, I'll go. And I said, oh no, Joe, I got this. Just to give you an idea, the surf I went in, on a scale of 1 to 10, is a 2 compared to what Aaron went in. He went in on a 10 scale. I went in on a 2, and my heart is in my throat. And I get out there, and I get the guy, and sure enough, for all you guys that have been out there, what does he say? I'm fine, no problems. I said, I'll tell you what. How many abalone you got? And he says, I got 3. And I said, great, you got your limit. Let's go in. So he and I start going in. He can't make it a bit. He's going backwards. So now I grab onto him. I start bringing him in. I look out, and there's Joe giving me my signals. Everything's working good. I'm on my way in, and the lady is on a PA system, one of those handheld PAs. And I hear her, wah, 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 at first, and then I realize she is berating that guy because we had to make the rescue. She is telling him how he endangered our lives, how he's kicked out, how he shouldn't be out there, and he's a so-and-so, such and such, that doesn't deserve to be rescued. I bring him in. I pass him off to Joe, who has by this time gotten into his peace officer gear, and Joe, smooth, calm as can be, does his abalone checks. He just moves right into, the guy's safe, we got him good, I did the aquatics, and now the next aspect, Joe's making the contacts for the fish and game. And I told him after, I said, Joe, they love you guys up here. You're superheroes. I haven't seen a single person say they don't like you. The coast is the same. The conditions are the same. Nothing has changed in 25 years except one massive, huge thing. And every one of you guys and ladies who have worked this coast, that's because of you. They love you. They love the work you do. They love what you do for your community and how you interact with them. And I can't tell you how proud that makes me coming back 25 years later, having been part of the Southern California guys with our own prejudices. So that was my day with Joe. Now I get my day with Tim. Same exact experience. And I'm out with Tim at Bodega Head, Russian River, Goat Rock, all those different places. He's got his kind of crew of two, and we're out, and we get a call from one of the guys working Duncan's Landing. And the guy working Duncan's Landing had just seen this tiny little rope that was attached to a spike that somebody put in the ground. And he just noticed it on his way by. So he went over and he looked down, and there's a husband and wife fishing team down there with the waves breaking and hitting and the white water kind of going over them and on a wet spot. And they call Tim in, and we get him all taken care of, get the family up over and back up safe. And that family doesn't realize just that contact alone, which seems so innocuous, seems so simple, quite honestly, very undramatic and not sexy in the least, that he very likely just saved those two people's lives. And that's what you guys do here every day. And I want you to understand, we know that. I know that what you did, Aaron, was a rescue that is so extraordinary and so outside of what any of us want to do or expect to do, but we do it because we have to. I know the real work that you put in is those hundreds and thousands of contacts of the people that you are warning about that. You don't want them in the water, and I know that. But I also know that every one of you guys, if you need to get in that water, you're in it, and you're going to be saving those lives. Now let's look at Aaron's day. Surf is 18 to 20 feet. Most of them are 15 on that coming in. Aaron and a couple guys working Goat Rock. They're doing the non-sexy, non-glamorous work. They're warning every single person who even steps on the sand. If you step on the sand, we're talking to you. And after this rescue happened, Aaron and I happened to be in a EMT class together, and I pulled him aside after class privately and said, hey, Aaron, I want to talk to you about the rescue. And one of the things that just absolutely just bowled me over was Aaron's humility. All he wanted to talk about was what he could have done better. I think I should have talked to him this way, or I should have done this, or I should have done that. And I really feel I didn't let them know how dangerous these conditions were. And it just amazed me that he had performed this tremendous feat. It wasn't about what Aaron did well, it was what I could have done better. So what you wanted to do and what you got were two totally different things. It's what you ended up with. The sets we're building, each wave looked like it was going to explode on top of you. There's a scene, if you look at the video, where this wave is breaking. It's giant. All you see is three little heads, little dots. And you see the wave start to feather. And I'm watching this as an old lifeguard. I'm watching it as the aquatic specialist. I'm watching it all the reasons I'm supposed to be watching it. And I'm thinking to myself, please, dear God, have Aaron make it through there. And you watch this wave break, and you see the mom and the daughter and Aaron, and he just pulls them through the back side of that wave. and saves their lives. Because if that wave would have broke on the three of them, we probably would have been doing body recoveries. I was so impressed by all the agencies working together. Henry 1 flying in, all the local fire departments, everybody there helping out. It was such an incredible experience to watch, and then having known what my experience was to see. So I also want to just thank all of you guys, all the firefighters, all the medics, all the officers, the sheriff's deputies, everybody that worked together. And I mentioned earlier my conversation with Aaron about this event. And as I mentioned, the biggest impression that I took away from him, and what I want all of you to take away, Aaron's humility. Somebody who does such tremendous work has every right to brag, has every right to pump up their chest. That's never been something he would even consider doing. We've already developed the theme. He's our goat farmer. He's going to do the non-sexy work. He's going to be the guy who goes out there, but you know what? Just like as part of the stories we've alluded to, when that one goat goes astray, you're getting him, and we know it. This honor is a recognition of your skill and abilities, a recognition of your place in this profession of lifeguarding, and your place in the 26-year history of the California State Lifeguards on the Sonoma Coast. As a lifeguard who worked this coast, as the aquatic specialist, as a representative of California Department of Parks and Recreation, I am so proud to be presenting you this Medal of Valor. I cannot think of a more worthy recipient. Oh, right here down the line. Face the camera. I wonder if this is what the president feels like when he gets to do this.
Great job, Aaron. Thanks again, sincerely, for everyone that took the time to be here on this Tuesday night to honor Aaron. Parting shot to leave you all with. One of the best parts about doing this job is that we get to see and do things that not everyone gets to do. One of the worst parts about doing this job is that we get to see and do things that nobody gets to do. So please take a moment before you all leave and go on your way to personally thank Aaron. He definitely deserves it. Thank you.